imagine you were having to move to a new town. That could be very scary. It would mean a new neighborhood, a new school, a new church, and new friends. Today, we will learn about a time God's people were afraid to go where God told them to go. Before we do, let me introduce you to our new big picture question. What is God like? God is holy, good, and loving. God cannot be fully described in these three words. God is so great that there are not enough words to describe him. However, these three words describe three very important attributes or characteristics about God's holiness that also includes his power and unchangeability. When talking about God's goodness, that includes his righteousness and justice. And when talking about God's love, that includes his mercy and grace. Now, we serve a great God, but we fail him all the time, just like the Israelites did. Remember when they built the golden calf? But even when we sin and mess up, God still loves us, and he still loved the Israelites. Today, we will see another example of how the people did not trust God. The Israelites made their way toward the promised land. God told Moses to send men to scout out the land. So Moses chose one leader from each family tribe. The 12 scouts went into the land and traveled around for 40 days. Then they went back to tell Moses and the other Israelites what they saw. The land is good, they said, but the people who live there are strong. Caleb spoke up. We must go up and take possession of the land. We can certainly conquer it with God's help. Joshua agreed with Caleb, but the other 10 scouts disagreed. We cannot go against these people. The Israelites were afraid, and they accused Moses of bringing them to Canaan to die. Joshua and Caleb said, "The land we explored is extremely good land. Do not be afraid of the people living in the land. God is with us." And while the people talked, God came down to talk to Moses. "How long will these people not trust me?" God asked. Moses urged God to forgive them. Moses reminded God that he is patient, loving, and forgiving. God said, "Since you asked, I will forgive them. But no one who has complained against me will get to see the promised land. Only Joshua, Caleb, and the Israelites' children would one day enter the land." Now the Israelites knew what they should do, but they were afraid to do it. They knew God wanted to give them the land, and all 12 scouts told them that it was a good land. But they did not trust God enough to move into the land and conquer the people living there. They were too afraid of their enemies and did not have enough faith in God. We can be tempted to feel the same way when faced with our problems. Sometimes we think our problems are bigger than God, but there is nothing too big for him. He is more powerful than anything we might face. Also, as we've learned already, when God promises something, he will always keep his promises. God had already planned to give Israel the land, but they did not trust that he would actually do it. Only Joshua and Caleb trusted God. As a result, they were rewarded. They would be the only two people allowed to enter the promised land. All those who did not trust God would be forced to wander in the wilderness for 40 years and would all die before the Israelites moved into the promised land. The Israelites did not trust God. They rebelled against him. But Jesus trusted God perfectly. He came into the world to take the punishment we deserve for our own rebellion against God. And when we trust in Jesus, God forgives our sin and invites us into his kingdom forever. Well, today, we begin a new memory verse, and I challenge your family to memorize this verse over the next few weeks. Exodus 15:11 says, "Lord, who is like you among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, revered with praises, performing wonders?" This verse comes from a song that these very people sang when God led them through the Red Sea. It should have reminded them that God had infinite power and can do anything, that nothing was too hard for him. Sadly, they did not trust God. We, however, can choose to trust God and worship him for how holy, good, and loving he is. Next week, we will sadly see another example of the disobedience of God's people. We'll see you then.